Vlokkie, today we're going to meet someone who was locally refined but has inspired globally. A player who's come through the ranks, played for Cilliers, and then he went on and he played for Saracens. So
that's unbelievable. I'm looking forward to that. It must be a legend. If you said globally inspired, then I think it must be a legend. So I'm looking forward to the afternoon.
Okay, so let's go and meet him.
Great.
Hallo Ernst, hoe gaan het met jou?
Ja, mooi.
Kan niet klaar nie man.
Welkom.
Goed, ja, nee, vir my te sien. Kry ja. Wel dan.
Yes, Ernst, gaan het? Lekker, dankie.
Om te sien, wel.
Thanks, man. We'd love to find out a little bit about your rugby career, and so maybe the school kids can learn a little bit from someone who's done it all.
Just crack next door and then let's have a good chat.
Great.
Okay, lead the way.
Ernst, thanks very much for making the time to chat to myself and Vlokkie. We like to kick it around a bit. You've been around the block a few times, and yeah, it's an important weekend this weekend for your old school. Tell us a little bit about the history of your rugby career. How did it all start?
So first of all, thanks for allowing me the opportunity to chat to you guys. Yeah, basically it probably started a bit further away than Cilliers. I kind of grew up in Elspruit, so I was there for my primary school days and what do you call grade 8 to 9, or standard 6 and 7 as we called it back in those days. And then my parents moved to the Cape, and I was lucky enough to come to Cilliers, and that's where I realised that it's quite a big derby game and something the guys really look forward to. So a bit of mixed emotions. I played 2 years first team. In '97 we won 12 points to 8.
Where was that played?
That was over here. We struggled a bit that year. I think they were unbeaten and we lost a few games, so it was totally against the odds. They scored fairly quickly, and which was probably maybe a good thing. I thought it was going to be an easy game, and then luckily the guys actually played above and beyond themselves, and we managed to basically stick in there with our defence and win the game. And then 98 was a bit different. There it was obviously a tough game. We lost in Bloem 23 points to 15, which kind of probably still haunts you in the back of your mind because you all want a successful matric year.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we just didn't come to the party of the day, and they had a decent team. But great memories. It's always played in good spirit, and I mean, I ended up actually meeting a lot of those guys in my rugby career that I played against at Grey a few years later. So it's just a fantastic, and not just the rugby. I mean, all the sports. Everyone come down here, and it's just a brilliant, almost final game for these boys to take part in before they go to, well, hopefully greener pastures in their life with their rugby careers.
Tell me, Ernst, obviously when you were playing 97, 98. And you compare when you were playing until the guys are playing now, schoolboy level. Seems to me the guys are bigger, fitter. There's much more structure. With schoolboy, there's more of a pattern, the way they attack, the way they play. In your days, can you pick up a big difference in your days up till now?
To be honest with you, I don't know if I would have been a professional rugby player if I went to school today. I mean, we rocked up 2 or 3 times a week and train in the afternoon. That was it. We didn't go to gym before school or had to eat this and do that. So we were fairly relied. We kind of relied on our skill, and we warmed up with touch rugby, and we probably were kind of decent with that. And but definitely, even in my last few years in my professional career, I just saw the boys coming through, and they're massive. They're professional. They eat, sleep, breathe rugby. The flankers that I had to play against eventually, they're strong, they're hard, they're fast, they're well balanced. So it's definitely changed. You always had the freak athletes back then. And it was kind of the nice thing with schoolboy rugby then was one year you'll be an average team, and the next year you'll have 2 stars or 2 big boys, and all of a sudden you're almost unbeaten in the country. So I mean, in our matric year, Grey had CJ van der Linde, he was massive. He ran relay, and he was a prop, and I mean,
I can remember. It was
tough playing against him. So you always had 1 or 2 of those boys, but nowadays it just feels like your average forward is definitely. I actually, to interrupt myself, I looked at in '98 we played St. John's Festival, and I got the program of the whole festival, and I think Nico Breed was the biggest forward. And Nico was a big boy, and he he weighed 97 kgs.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I looked at the
What
booklet
position?
as a number 8.
Number
Okay.
8, yeah.
And I looked at the booklet the other day, and I mean, your average forward is 95, 96. The guys go to 110, 115.
Wow.
So
And
it's a bit-
even the backs now are close to 90 kilos. I mean,
so I don't know. You look,
big
the guys are conditioned, but you don't know if their professional careers might be a bit shorter. I mean, the collisions nowadays is just ridiculous, and
That's
so-
actually a good point. Actually,
Yeah.
I think in a way it shortened any player's career because at the early age he's starting massive with physicality. You have to dominate early in the gym. And you get to matric. I mean, the collisions that you had along the field. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, after that you get to ASA schools. You get under 29, under 19, under 21. I mean, those guys are big.
No, I mean, I look at the SA school boys and the English boys and the Argentinian boys are all here at SAS at the moment playing the competition, and they're proper side.
They're big boys.
They're very big.
And they're well conditioned. It's
No,
not
that's-
just big.
no,
There's
no,
a
that's
difference
the
between
thing.
big and well conditioned.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
they're fast.
They're fast.
and
Look, they're probably a little bit, in some instances, probably a little bit more structured nowadays, which can maybe take away creativity in the long run. But I mean, they're athletes. You got to give them that.
They're good athletes. Ernst, you had quite a long career. To the schoolboys looking at this program, how do you come back from injuries? I know you've had some serious injuries in your life. What is the thing that keeps you coming back to try and stay at the top level? Because a lot of guys, if you look at some of the Springboks as well, they towards the end of the career they're playing their best rugby. I think it's the mental capability that they have, but what's the driving force? How do you come back from bad injuries?
I think once you're in the system and you get injured, you kind of looked after. It's fine.
Okay.
You've got support staff that looks after you. My biggest struggle was I finished studying at university. The Lions, Eugene Ilov saw me play for Martyrs against Cilliers, offered me a contract. I went to the Lions, 2003 November, trained for 2 months, went on holiday, came back, and the first week I tore my groin. And no one knew that there were 2 people that saw me play before, and it was Eugene Ilov in that game, and then Skalk Brits, who obviously we played a lot together, and he was there. So none of the players knew. Frans Ludiger didn't know what I can do, and there I end up. I tore my groin, and now I get operation. It's a Gilmore groin, and they tell me 10 weeks later I'm going to run, and 10 weeks later I can't even jog. So 6 months goes past. I get another operation, another 6 months pass. So eventually, a year and a half in, no one knows who I am. They probably think I'm there for a paycheck. That was probably the toughest time. No one can tell you what's wrong with you. And then eventually I met the late Ron Holder, who put wedges in my shoes.
And the story goes around, Ernst just here to get a paycheck, he's not training, he's doing nothing.
And then luckily the wedges in my shoes sorted me out, and a week later I played my first game, and it kind of went easier from there. But that was a tough bit where you rock up in a new place in Johannesburg. No one knows what you can do. You feel you've got ability. All the guys probably behind your back think this guy is a joke. So that took a bit of mental toughness, but I kind of took it in my stride. And I got to a point where I told Frans, look, I've signed a 3-year contract, but I'm not going to waste your time and your money. So I'm going to give it another month, and then you guys can release me and I'll go and find a job. So, because I definitely never wanted a free ride. And then actually in that month it all kind of turned around. So that was a tough bit. Once you look, sport comes with its injuries, and once you're in the system, you get good years where you play 2 years and you play lots of games, and then all of a sudden it's almost like it catches up with you. And 1 year I tore a hand ligament. I was out for 5 months. I played 6 games, and I tore a shoulder ligament, and I was out for another 5 months. So unfortunately, that's the way it goes, and it's a fairly short career. You said I had a long career. Actually, it wasn't too long compared to some of the players I knew, because I signed my first contract at 23, and I finished just before I turned 35. So
there was a bit of, I know you worked in a warehouse at one stage and you played rugby for a club.
Yeah, so that was my gap year. So after school, look, I like a gap year because I feel at school you get been told what to do your whole life. And all of a sudden now you got to decide a career path, and you got to decide it, and you actually haven't found yourself, if I can state it in that sense. So a gap year was good for me. We were fortunate enough back in those days to get that working holiday visa in the UK. So I went to Jacques Hanekom, who's obviously been great mentor to me. He got me a gap in Cheltenham, played for the Colts there, and I worked in a shower warehouse packing boxes and lived on a farm. So it was great memories. But I did that, and then I came back to Stellenbosch and I studied and did my degree, and then luckily I'm quite obviously back in those days some of my friends had junior contracts at Western Province. I didn't have it, but I'm quite happy in that sense that I had that student life, and it probably taught me a lot.
Yeah, but you see, there's not a lot of players nowadays realize, listen, I can't play forever. I mean, a lot of players think, listen, I can play for the next 10, 15 years, and they not have a plan B or start something, because they have more than enough time to start something, but they never start something, and then realize suddenly, woke up one morning, have a big injury, don't get a contract here, don't get a contract overseas, and now what's going on here? So that's why that's the 3 or the 5% in South Africa is playing. They can actually, the day when they stop playing rugby, they can go into the job, or they look after themselves, or they were clever enough to start looking after sponsors and go forward.
So I want to touch on that because I've been good friends with Brendan for a very long time, but I was actually very close to Brendan when he took the job to permanently move to Saracens a few years ago. And one of the things that I think he had a massive impact, and I still listen to guys like Skulk and you when you talk about it, is the system that and the culture that Brendan created.
Unbelievable.
Where Brendan said that rugby is 80 minutes on a Saturday or on a Wednesday night or whatever, but what happens in between? And I think if you have that in place, that's when you have an injury, then you focus on the in-between stuff because you can't play the 80 minutes. And so it's the culture and the system and then the support group.
No, absolutely. I mean, they actually employed someone for the PDP personal development program system, and they made sure that you did your bit. And it was hard for as a few South African guys that went over, we were a bit older, so we were quite keen to get involved in the city. But even for the younger guys, you got to understand, you're 18, 19, you sign your first contract, the last thing you're worrying about is your future. So it's understandable, you just want to play rugby and it's fun. But it was something they really focused on, and I think it was also an era where rugby really went professional. The guys said, look, it's a professional job nowadays, it's 8 hours a day you got to train for, and it's impossible. So and you can't do it, your body will pack up. So I think the guys got more clever and realized, look, you actually get more out of the players by congesting it a bit. And then there's enough spare time for the guys to actually crack on and get, even if it's just a hobby, or just try a few things to see what you actually like at the end of the day.
Okay, so again, the more senior guys, the mentors can teach these young kids. I mean, you work quite a lot with very good rugby players who are just leaving school. And to them, they've all got this dream that they're going to become a Springbok one day. I mean, I'm sure you had it.
Absolutely.
We all played rugby in our backyards. And
we all have that dream.
So just, I mean, I'm probably jumping the gun here, but obviously I run an international 5-month academy for boys that basically want to, just for 1 year, focus on rugby and get a high performance professional program. And we do it here at Stellenbosch. And the thing is, that's what I said earlier as well. I love a gap year because nowadays your varsity cup is basically under 20. So you're sitting with a 19-year-old who is probably going to maybe end up, because there's so many players in the system, end up playing courses rugby first. So he might as well take a gap year and figure out what he wants to do in life and come to Stellenbosch and see what Stellenbosch is about before he actually joins, because sometimes you rock up here in this town, it swallows you in, and 6 months later you got to go home.
Exactly, yeah.
So
explain.
Exactly. So I'm all for a gap year. So we kind of give the guys opportunity to find the fit. And I work with the young, and what I keep on telling them is, even if you think rugby is your career path, just make sure you do enough in matric to get basically an opportunity to go to university. Because at this moment in time, it's very hard to get into France. It's impossible to get in the UK if you didn't have a grandparent or mother there. And even if you want to go and play major league in America, you need to have 2 Currie Cup caps. So the options are far and few. So and for a younger guy who's not in a SA schools team, the only way you're going to make it if you stay in the system. And at that moment, the best way to stay in the system is actually through a varsity cup, where you play 3 or 4 years, you mature, someone sees you, get a Currie Cup, 1, 2, 3 games, all of a sudden super rugby.
And if you're good enough, the right people will see you.
100%. But if you don't have a name and you can't go to university and you come for 5 months and we give you the greatest program in the world, we'll try our best to get an exit, but it's so much harder. It's actually you actually verge on miracle work.
Yes.
And that's the trick.
Ernst, you touched on we all reach for that single dream. I mean, your grandfather played for the Springboks.
Yeah, he was a one capper, but it was a successful cap against New Zealand in PE. It was the fourth of 4 tests, and I think they went unbeaten in the 4 tests, but he played the last one in 1949.
1949. And did he have any influence on your rugby career? As
Loads. Obviously, we used to go and visit them for holidays and weekends when they were in Johannesburg and we were in Nelspruit. But he always, my dad, they used to sit down about leadership and how you play and what do you see. And my granddad also, you can kick right, but now you got to park the right foot. Now you got to start kicking with the left. Back then I still played centre, but obviously that's where it all started.
When did you move to the forwards?
I played centre. I remember I was in grade 2, so I played for the grade 3s, and then because that's your first professional kind of thing where you play on a big field. Back in those days, we never played on half fields. We slotted straight to a big field, and then I played. I played first team in grade, grade 6, and then the teacher moved me to wing. And my dad said back in his days he played wing and he never saw a ball, so he said, you got decent size, you're going to go to number 8.
Come play there.
So actually,
it was actually your dad who said.
Yeah. So I moved to number 8 and I felt at home, and it was decent and I enjoyed it. And then I moved to Paul Roos and instead I'm going to say standard 8 because it just makes more sense.
The math's difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
Well.
You got to speak English well. But then I came here and I had a good trials, but Joe Connaughton was my coach then, and he said, well, we've got a phenomenal number 8, and Philip van Schalkwyk, who was a phenomenal athlete. Where are you keen to play lock? Then and I said, well, I just want to play 8 and I'll definitely play lock. And in all fairness, those 3 years that I played lock was probably the best thing that I could have done to my rugby career as a loose forward, because I got a skill in the line out that gave me a bit of an edge, I would like to think, and it actually at the end of the day opened a few doors for me and probably kept me in the system a bit longer than I probably should have been.
I just want to touch base on Saracens. I mean, for me, Saracens is the top club in Europe at the moment, but also you get big clubs like a Munster and a Leinster and maybe a Toulouse or Montpellier, but not in the same league. But for me, Saracens, if I look at the days when we was the Bulls and the Bulls dominant SA rugby, the one thing that stood out for the Bulls was family orientated. I mean, it was massive. I always said the Bulls are family, and we were family. The guys were close, the wives were close, and that brings through to the games when it was tense. The guys would pull together. But the Saracens, you had so many stories of it's a close family. It's like a tight community, and you can see the guys the way they play there, and there's a lot of superstars there. But obviously, for you being there, Ernst, what's the 1 or 2 things that you say was good of Saracens, and that you learned as a player, that you said, listen, this is what I can bring back to SAS and teach the guys here, because obviously you've been a captain at Saracens, and for an South African guy to be a captain in England at the UK club, man. Then they have to say something. They have to say something about you. So well done for that. So what was good at Saracens? You say 1 or 2 things, but you said, listen, this is what give us a difference, and that I can bring back.
I think it might have changed because you said there are a lot of stars and they've had success and they want success, but it's absolutely it's Brendan, Edward Griffith, and definitely Nigel Ray as the owner, who came in with the mindset and said, okay, guys, look. It's not about winning, it's about a process. And a lot of coaches says it, but it's quite hard for them to live up to it because there's pressure.
To stick to that plan,
So for us it was, Brendan and Edward always said, for us, we will treat the players unbelievably well. In return, they just need to work hard. So that's fairly simple. You don't have to be the most skillful, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I just got to have a massive effort each game, and if you have 23 players, not simultaneously on the field, but it's a squad of 23, all wanting to be in a system because they are treated extremely well. They get trips. Their wives have coffee mornings. The only thing these players have to worry about is work hard and focus on rugby. That was it. Simple as that. Not complicated. Not judged by did you win or lose, because let's say you had the best week of rugby in your life. You lose a game by 1 point. Was it a bad week? No, it wasn't.
No.
So it was, are we better than last week? And that's what all about. And surely you dip now and then. But that was the whole mindset. So it was, let's treat these guys amazing, and then they'll in return work extremely hard. And like you said, Vlok, everyone, we were a very happy family. The guys had a few beers together every now and then. The so wives loved each other's company.
And team environment, that's massive.
And we actually rocked up there as a few guys with maybe wives and girlfriends, and we all left with 2 or 3 kids later, and it's actually amazing. And Brendan's thing was, look, we're a young squad, and we've got a few caps here, but at the end of the day, when we leave, we need guys. We need 7, 8 guys in a squad that's got 100 caps, and that's exactly what happened.
That will win trophies for you.
And that's exactly. And now the kind of system, because it's professional, it's well looked after. The system looks after itself. The academy is fantastic. Now in England, in the World Cup squad, Saracens have got the most academy pathway players. Not even just Saracens players. They've got 6 pathway academy players coming through the system. So they look after the young. Their recruitment is fantastic.
Unbelievable.
And they look after the older guys as well.
I remember Heineken, that was at the Bull, said, for South African team to win a Super Rugby title, you need to have 7, 8 Springboks. And the other guys must be as good as the guys at Springbok. They must actually be the next guys in for the Springbok. And in certain positions, you need to have the best guys in the position. You need to have the best fly-off, or the best 9, or the best 8 playing for the Bulls.
Kicker.
Then you will win the Super Rugby title. That's what happened at Saracens. You look at their pack of forwards. I mean, it's the England pack of forwards. You look at the 10. I mean, it's world-class players. Actually, they don't have to coach them, and they do the game management, and they do the control, handle the pressure. You just have to guide him in the direction. Unbelievable.
Absolutely. That's what it's. There are a couple of important tournaments or games coming up. The very first one of importance is this Saturday. At Marcotte, where you played many matches. Are you going to be brave enough to? I know where your heart lies, but what do you think? You probably know both teams quite well.
You don't know what to think. I mean, if you're going to go on paper or results during the year, you have to back Grey. They're phenomenal. I mean, I've seen their games, and no one has actually. There was a Paul Jim that kind of got close, but no one really got that close.
They've got a certain way of play.
They've got a certain way. They're well coached. They're well drilled. They've got size. They've got speed. But in the past, people have also said, I mean, Paul Roos have got quality players. They, as an under-16 team, were fantastic. Narrowly lost against Grey here. And maybe because of 1 or 2 injuries, the team didn't absolutely live up to what was expected of them this year. And I mean, it was actually just the 2 losses in a row that when they came back from overseas. But it's so hard to say. I mean, Paul Roos will have to do very good to beat Grey, but there's a few boys on that team that can take control of the game plan.
That's good.
And if you look at the last 3 years, there's been 2 points in it each year. So anything can happen. Honestly, I would like to see Paul Roos do it. But look, I think it'll be a fantastic game again.
As a non-rugby player, how big is the difference between? I know I've been to Grey a few times. I've seen that field very hard. No green grass on the field. They come here. It's been raining quite a bit. It's wet, slippery. I photographed Kiro on Monday. The guys were slipping around a bit. I mean, that must play quite a...
It must. Look, we were here, so it was easy for us. It was always grow the grass. It was tough going there because you rock up there and it's yellow and it's dry. It feels like you got that blood in the back of your throat. Burns first 5 minutes. So that was always a tough one. But I mean, these boys nowadays, they play in all these festivals and tournaments and they fly. They do travel around. So I mean, they're kind of used to it. They know what it's about. And I mean, these Grey boys, they need to travel every weekend to get a proper game. So for them, it's not strange.
And that's the last question. I think that's a question for everybody. It's just the World Cup is coming up. I think we have a chat before we started, is from last year, 2 years ago, like maybe we can make the top 4, then we'll be happy. Now suddenly we are serious contenders and the way we play, and I think Rassi went back to the old way. get a massive pack of forwards,
Yeah.
dominate physical, get a good 10, get a good defensive system. So I think you will agree that we have a good chance.
We do have a good chance. Like you said, a year or two ago, I felt we got to a point where we flirted with the idea of having a bit of a pick and choose mentality. So we can be phenomenal the one game, and then we play against maybe a less decent side, and then we all of a sudden play poorly.
Yeah.
This year I got the vibe that it might be a bit different. It's like they really gun for each game.
Yes.
So if we can have that mentality, I'm very positive. My worry is you go against New Zealand, and you, like we always do, we're sharp and we're brilliant against New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yes, we beat them, or we narrowly
Yes.
lose against. And then you get a Scotland or an Ireland, and then all of a sudden you're just at 2% off. And if you're 2% off against Scotland, Ireland, you're gone.
And then you have a long day.
And then
Yes.
it's done. World Cup over. So
Or
there's
Japan.
yeah, or Japan, yeah. So there's exactly like that. So if I'm mentally we're there, which I believe, and it looks like Russie is getting the most out of the boys with
Yeah.
that, then we are extremely, and obviously bearing one or two injuries.
Yes, I'll just say injuries will
But
play a vital role.
then we are, because this weekend, the last 2 weeks, with those packer forwards running hard lines on you, and then Pollard out
That's
the
what I
back
said.
also running hard
That's
line,
what
who's
I
a
said.
big player. Eventually, after minute 60, you see them, but there's not a lot you can do about it. My one worry that I might be concerned about still, that I'm not sure if we tick that box yet, is wet weather play.
Yeah.
We've struggled in the games that's rained a bit.
I agree on that one. I agree
Because
on
we
that
play
one.
so flat and we play on that vantage line,
Yeah,
I think our skill set might get under pressure.
I agree. I
That's
agree
my
with that
one worry, but I've heard good news that the chance of rain in Japan that time of the year is fairly
Yeah.
slim.
Yeah.
And you'll know, Vlok, you've been
Yeah,
there a few
yep.
times. So that might be a bit of a saving grace, but we've got great players now in the right positions for us
Agree.
to actually crack
Yeah,
on,
brilliant.
and because it'll just be amazing for not just sport but for us as a country.
No, of
I
course,
think
we
kinda
need it. We
something
need
like
that. We
yeah.
need it. We need it.
Soos hulle sê in Japan, het maak nie saakie.
Nagasaki.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, thank you very
Nice
much.
to chat
Thanks,
to you.
Ernst. Nice chatting. Thank
And I
you.
hope you're
Appreciate
right
it.
with both predictions, Paul Roos and the box.
Me too.